These two paintings just revealed something the West has been hiding for centuries about African women in art history. What you're seeing isn't just art, it's a declaration of war against cultural erasure. For too long, African women have been deliberately erased from art history textbooks. When they show us art, it's always European women, European perspectives, European everything. But today, we are flipping the script. These two pieces represent something revolutionary, the intertwining of African culture with Western influence, but told from our perspective for the first time. The front side shows what everyone sees, the surface story. But the back? The back tells the truth they don't want you to know. Like this video if you want to help more Africans see this story that mainstream media won't tell you. Let me break down exactly what's happening here and why it matters for every single person watching this video. These paintings aren't just beautiful, they are political statements. They are saying that African women have always been creators, innovators, and artistic visionaries, long before European colonizers ever set foot on our continent. Here's what they don't teach you in school. African women were creating sophisticated art for thousands of years. The Nok culture in Nigeria was producing terracotta sculptures as early as 1000 BC. That's over 3,000 years ago. 3,000 years before most European civilizations even existed. In ancient Egypt, women like Queen Nefertiti weren't just subjects of art, they were patrons and creators. In the kingdom of Kush, Nubian queens commissioned massive pyramids and artistic works that still stand today. But somehow, when you open any Western art history book, these stories vanish. The systematic erasure of African women from art history isn't accidental, it's strategic. By controlling the narrative of who creates legitimate art, they control who gets to be seen as civilized, as cultured, as human. But here's where it gets interesting. Today's African artists are refusing to play by their rules. From Nigeria's Njideka Akunyili Crosby selling paintings for over $3 million, to South Africa's Esther Mahlangu having her work displayed in major international museums, African women are reclaiming their rightful place in art history. Subscribe for honest, Pan-African analysis you won't find on CNN or BBC, because they'll never tell you these stories. Now, let's talk about the key players who are changing this narrative right now. Artists like Ghana's El Anesui, whose massive metal installations have redefined contemporary art globally. Or Kenya's Wangechi Mutu, whose powerful sculptures challenge every Western assumption about African femininity. But it's not just individual artists. Entire movements are rising. The Zeitz Museum in South Africa has become the largest contemporary African art museum on the continent. For the first time in history, we have a space dedicated entirely to showcasing African creativity on African soil. Governments are getting involved too. Rwanda has launched the Kigali Center for Arts, positioning itself as the cultural hub of East Africa. Ghana's Year of Return brought home not just the diaspora, but highlighted Ghanaian artists who had been creating world-class work all along. Here's what this means for the future of Africa and why every African should care about this movement. Art isn't just decoration, it's soft power. It's how you shape global perception. It's how you control your own narrative. When African art sells for millions at Sotheby's and Christie's, when African artists get featured in the Venice Biennale, when African museums become must-visit destinations, that's not just cultural victory. That's economic victory. That's political victory. The global art market is worth over $67 billion annually. For too long, Africa has been excluded from this wealth while our cultural heritage was stolen and displayed in Western museums. But that's changing. Countries like Nigeria are demanding the return of stolen artifacts. Museums in London, Paris, and Berlin are finally being forced to give back what was never theirs. And as African artists gain global recognition, the economic benefits are flowing back to the continent. This is about more than art, this is about rewriting history itself. When young African girls see themselves represented in galleries, when African stories are told through African voices, when African perspectives become the norm instead of the exception, that changes everything. The truth is, they were never better than us at art or anything else. They just control the platforms, the galleries, the textbooks, the narratives. But social media, global connectivity, and movements like this are leveling the playing field. Every time an African artist gets international recognition, Every time an African story gets told authentically, every time someone like the creator of these paintings shares their work with pride, we're not just making art. We are making history. The future of African art is bright, and it's happening right now. From digital art platforms showcasing African creators to international collectors specifically seeking African works, the tide has turned. We're not asking for a seat at the table anymore, we're building our own tables. These two paintings represent that spirit perfectly. They show both sides, the surface that the world sees, and the deeper truth that only we understand. That's the power of African storytelling. We've always known that every story has multiple layers, multiple perspectives. Check out this next video where I break down exactly how African countries are using cultural diplomacy to reshape global politics. The art world is just the beginning. What excites me most is that this is happening across the entire continent. From Senegal's Dakar Biennale to Kenya's Nairobi Contemporary Art Institute, from Morocco's art galleries to South Africa's creative hubs, Africa is creating, Africa is innovating, and Africa is demanding recognition. Comment below and tell me, what African artist or artwork has inspired you the most? Let's build a community that celebrates our creative heritage and supports our contemporary artists. The narrative is changing, the power is shifting, and Africa is rising. And it's about time.